Yo, just a disclaimer. This podcast is meant for informational purposes only. We are not financial advisors, so please do your own research. Welcome to Going Deep with AJ and Vernon, presented by Vayner Sports Pass.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's show. We're going to start with a little bit of NBA talk, free agency and trades and who we want to see going where. So, AJ, biggest name, KD.
Yeah.
Where do you want him to go?
Where I want him to go is the Knicks. That's me being biased as a Knicks fan and be a really good sticker to the Nets across the river. I don't think that's happening. I mean, I'd love to see it. That's a great question. Where would KD be fun?
But and also, like, he's just requested a trade, and everybody outside of it thinks, okay, well, he's getting traded. The team should be like, I really don't care if you requested a trade. Like, you're not going to not play.
So I saw somebody talk about this. What you just described, I think you see a ton of in the NFL. Like, an NFL player is like, hey, I want out. And the team's like, okay, cool. Like, shut up. Kind of, right? That's a lot of the time the reaction. Sometimes it happens. I feel like in basketball, if you look at it, basketball, one player can mean so much and do so much. And it's just like they play offense and defense. There's only 5 of them. I mean, KD controls the game in whatever game he's in. So I think it's just a different culture. To your point, the Nets could sit, but I feel like history tells us they're going to make a move. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think it's the right time. Yeah. I think if they're able to get, especially what they're talking about, what's been reported, they want an all-star, they want young talent, they want future picks. If they're able to get that, and I'm maybe a little biased, the Warriors have all of that. Back to it, but then the Warriors will be giving up their future, which they have a rich future ahead of them too. So it's going to be interesting. I wish that it would have worked out with him and Kyrie and see what Ben Simmons could do.
What about Atlanta? Is that a big one thing is I could be wrong. I don't see KD going to like a Minnesota or an Atlanta. Not that market matters, and obviously he made his waves in Oklahoma City, but I just feel like later in his career, I just don't see him in Minnesota or Orlando, for example. But Atlanta, between the pieces that they have, and I think there's no way that they deal Trey. You pair up Trey and KD and some good shooting and some defense. That feels like a pretty fun one to me on the surface.
Yeah, that's a young, talented team, has done really well in the draft. And they have some pieces that they can move. It does make sense. But then if it were baseball, you wouldn't be talking about trading someone that's in your same division or same conference. Like, but it's different in basketball, I think. Because like you said, basketball players almost run the game, like in more than any other sport they do.
Yes, I agree with that. Oh, you know what's a pretty obvious one? Feel like Phoenix is really in play. Maybe just do I think as far as I know, I haven't been since I don't work in basketball. It's funny. Before being an agent, I was super on top of basketball, but now because Vayner Sports is football, baseball, MMA, gaming, basketball is like the 5th sport that I know the most about. So I believe Ayton is still a free agent, and the sign and trade mechanic. I could see a sign and trade built around Ayton and some pieces, KD and Booker and CP3.
That would be trouble.
Yeah, that's trouble. And like
that's trouble.
Point that gets him out of the East. I'd love, this won't happen because I think Charlotte falls into the same category as the Orlando and the Minnesota, but a LaMelo KD combo, kind of like a passing of the torch. LaMelo is just so fun to watch. I'm a big Melo guy. That's another one that could be fun. And man, Golden State would be fascinating just to see the reunion.
It would be spectacular, but then the Lakers would have to get Kyrie. There's just too much.
What's wrong with LeBron and Kyrie running it back? That's a storyline too.
It is, but it seems like Kyrie is just kind of strange at times, and I think it seems like LeBron knows it, but maybe he's able to deal with it better this time.
The other option is, does Toronto figure out a way to do it again? They had Kawhi on a rental, won a chip. Is there a way? Toronto's a big city. Yeah, I mean, plenty about it. That could be a fun one too. I don't know if they have the piece now from a fun perspective. I don't know if they have the pieces left after that deal that surround KD to make it a real contender and real fun, like some of those other trades. But kudos to the last. They pulled it off once.
They did pull it off once, but yeah,
we didn't care what Kawhi thought. They were perfectly fine figuring it out later, and they won a ring along the way. So that's interesting.
But with Kawhi, you may have to treat him that way. Like, we don't care. It's 1 year. You're just gonna have to deal with it and play yourself into your free agency.
Right. KD still has a bunch of years left, though, right? Doesn't he have like?
Yeah, I think he's got 3 years left on that deal, maybe
3 or 4, right? Yeah.
So 3 or 4 left.
Yeah, we'll see, man. I'm curious. Knicks fan in me, I'd be lying if I wasn't. I'm not as up to snuff on Jalen Brunson and his game. I know he made some real noise in the playoffs. I remember his father running the point for the New York Knicks at one point, Rick. I've seen some numbers that got me going with Jalen. I think he's a Nova kid too, and I know how they build him there. So, the Knicks, I'm 35. I was too young for the glory years of those Knicks teams, like the real prime for Ewing and crew. At the very least, we added a good player. I guess that's my perspective. And they did some interesting things around the draft. I know some people aren't satisfied, but I do think, they added a real piece at the very least.
Yeah, I like Jalen. He's a competitor, and I think he's shown that since his time in college. So he's not going to hurt the team. Let's just put it that way.
No question. By the way, Chicago's another team. They got some young assets for KD, bringing it back to KD. That's another one to watch out for.
Yeah. I know there's been some OKC talk too, and they got some young players. It's just, what do they have to give up to get him?
Did you see Chet's debut? His first summer league game?
I did. He's a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be interesting to see how he's able to battle around with the big boys when it comes time to it. But he dominated on that stage.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it was Kenny Lofton. Is that Kenny Lofton's kid, by the way?
I don't know.
Name. I don't know either.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, there's a Kenny Lofton, whether it's a junior or not, I don't know, to the legendary baseball player. Fun fact, my brother's favorite player growing up, Kenny Lofton. But I think it was Chet's second game that I think was illustrative of like what it's going to be with Chet. First of all, he's 19. We got to, you think about Giannis, you think about Dirk, you think about KD, you think about Porzingis. Like, the rookie year for a guy built the way Chet is built, there's going to be some growing pains on defense in particular. Big boy Kenny kind of pounded him a bit in the post, threw a shoulder into him and such. But I think on the offensive side of the ball, it's so clear the type of magic that Chet possesses and what it could be in the modern NBA. So he'll be fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. And funny Kenny Lofton story, the home run that I robbed in Old Yankee Stadium, A-Rod's homer. So the next day, we're just standing around the cages stretching. I've never spoken to Kenny in my life. He was on that Yankees team.
He's on that Yankees team. Got it.
Yeah. He walks over to me, looks at me, and says, "Man, you look like a young Kenny Lofton," and walked away.
Hey, that was like, the thing.
Yeah, but I'm like, the dude didn't. I'm looking around at the guys around me. I'm like, did y'all just hear this? He didn't say hi. He didn't introduce himself. That's all he said and walked off. I'm like, what is going on right now?
By the way, as I stated, my brother Gary, Kenny Lofton, his favorite player. I'm seeing my brother later today. I will tell him that story, and it'll double down why Kenny Lofton is my brother's favorite player.
Exactly. He's gonna love
that is what I think Gary hopes to hear of Kenny Lofton. And to Kenny's credit, I have a lot of visuals. Like, I feel like, what was it called? Baseball Tonight, I think was the show, right? I feel like growing up when I was little, it was Kenny Lofton scaling the center field wall all the damn time. Like, that was his signature move, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, he wasn't lying. It was just funny the way it happened. It's
a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's what about NFTs real quick before we jump into our guest? I'll talk about it for a minute. I'm curious what you're thinking, but it's I think it's, let me do it in real time real quick. ETH at 1220 and change, I think is a nice stable number. I think it's been nice to see ETH in that 1200 range versus that dip that we had for a while where it felt like it just kept going down and down. I feel like some NFT projects are either stabilizing or growing. Two that I saw earlier today that I was just looking at, I was like, okay, like Moonbirds, I think, was in the high 20s on an ETH basis. I think Bored Ape was in the high 90s. Oh, there's me. That's on me, y'all. I did not put my phone in airplane mode. Brandon, don't edit that out. Keep it. I want people to see my mistake. Back in airplane mode now. I think Bored Ape in the high 90s, Moonbirds in the high 20s. I think I saw Grifters by Xcopy right at 20. So I feel like some projects are picking up steam. I feel it on the Vayner Sports Pass side. Like our sales volume had a good week, numbers going up, some bigger buys. So yeah, I'm not trying to pump hopium into the ecosystem, but I'd be lying if I wasn't encouraged by what I saw in the crypto/NFT market in the last week or so. What are you seeing, Vern? What's piqued your curiosity?
Well, as I do my research and just watching projects, and obviously what Banner Sports Pass is doing, and just the content that it's providing, and just it's a value play, I think is the biggest thing. And I look at some other projects and do some research, and there's some I just don't have any idea why they are so expensive, like Admit One.
Well, I'll tell you why I think Admit One is expensive. I got a good anecdote for that. And in full transparency, I'm not an Admit One holder, at least not yet. And I've been, this is such a cop out, but I've been really busy since G Money launched the project. So I haven't done my diligence, but I know G Money. G Money's a friend. He's somebody that I've known. Fun fact, shout out to G Money. When I first got into NFTs, like my first hangout spot was the Larva Labs Discord and the CryptoPunks channel in particular. And the first person I followed on Twitter that covered the NFT topic was G Money. He was early on the content creation side. He had, just as I was getting involved, bought an ape punk, his famous ape PFP. I think he bought that maybe like 2 to 4 weeks before I started following him. I just found him to be extremely insightful. We actually connected on DM. We got on, a call where he was anonymous, but we've gotten to know each other. And so, the same way that I think VFriends is so valued is because of the operator and my brother. G Money is one of the NFT native individuals that I think has the rare ability to be both a blended quote unquote influencer. I don't mean to use that word in a derogatory manner. And I think my brother is a quote unquote influencer, even though I think both Gary and G Money don't want to be described that way. I think it's a byproduct of their success. It's a byproduct of their wonderful ability to communicate. And I think G Money, I've had a bunch of conversations with him. And I just think his critical thinking, his understanding of markets and finance, his creativity, his networking ability, his communication ability. Again, I actually have no idea what Admit One has done to date, but just based on the amount of quality time I've had with G Money, both talking to him and consuming his content, I'm a big believer in Admit One as a project. So, and kudos to him. I think he did it in a really dope way. If I'm not wrong, I believe it was predominantly a free mint where he gave people those NFTs when he met them. I think I actually heard some stories of people getting Admit Ones. I'm 100% sure. I know at least one person, I think a few others, got an Admit One for free during VCon because G Money was there. And so I think that was dope too, just the way he went about it. He didn't, all the value that's built into it is the market saying that it's worth that, because I believe it was a free mint. I could be wrong, but a lot of it was free at the very least. So that's my perspective on Admit One personally.
Okay, so then I'm going to need G Money to be listening to this and tell me where he's going to be so we can meet one day. Because if that's the case, I'll meet him wherever. I
think it's over. You missed your window. I think
oh no, maybe Admit Two. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, the best part is I have aspirations. He doesn't know this, but I want to. I've obviously been thinking about like who are the guests that we're going to have over the coming months, and G Money's on my radar as a friend, and now I really want to get him on the show because I want to get him on the show. And then I want to have Brandon play the clip of you questioning Admit One and just see his reaction for fun. So I'm even more incentivized to get G Money on here.
And the fact that he goes by G Money is it's gangster. So yes, we got to have him on.
You know what? It kind of reminds. I feel like, I feel like if Kenny Lofton was an NFT creator, he would have been K Money. It takes a certain bravado to go by G Money, and I think Kenny and our friend G Money have it.
Oh, Kenny would have pulled it off in a heartbeat.
No problem. He probably was K Money. We could probably find a teammate that can confirm at some point on the Indians he was K Money. He just feels like a K Money to me.
Anything cool, it would have probably come out of his mouth. So, yeah.
Awesome. So let's pivot. We got a great guest here, Luke, the founder, co-founder and creator, lead artist of Thingdoms, our partner in the Vayner Sports Pass June partnership meant. So Luke, I'm excited to have you on.
Hello.
How's it
Thank you.
going,
That was
brother?
such a very kind intro.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you.
How you doing? You good?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, good.
So Luke, appreciate you, my friend. To get us started, can you just give everybody a little bit of background, and then Vernon and I will poke from there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name's Luke. I am the founder of Thingdoms, an NFT project that hopefully a lot of your listeners know about. But I mean, in addition to sort of this founder role that I'm in, I previously was an advertising creative. So I worked as an art director for the last 10 years, copywriter and art director, so a bit of both. Never quite made it to the levels of Don Draper. When people ask me what I do, I always ask them if they've seen Mad Men. But yeah, that's my background. Is I come from advertising creative background, but to almost go back a level from that now, because on my bio it says founder artist at Thingdoms. I was always kind of an artist, or I considered myself as an artist, but I was maybe one of these artists that took a more commercial route to pursuing art as a career through being an art director. So yeah, I always had an interest and had a desire to create and build and paint and draw, but I think it became more tangible through a career in advertising than the traditional one until now.
So to that point, when you and I first got in touch in the early days of the NFT wave, I think that's something that you and I got to bond on, was that ad background, right? Because I also have an advertising background, and while I wasn't a traditional creative the same way you were, obviously got to experience a lot of the same, pros and cons of being in the ad world. You brought up Mad Men. Little anecdote. I can't watch the show.
Right.
And I'm curious if you had the same experience. For me, while I loved my 7 years in the ad world, I feel like when I watched Mad Men, I tried to give it a go, because so many people are like, yo, you're like building this ad agency and it's Don Draper, da-da-da. I felt like I was at work watching the show. I got a lot of, it was not, I won't say PTSD, because that's an unfair characterization of my experience in the ad world. And Vernon, maybe you could speak to this a little bit, maybe not, considering you decided after being a player to become an agent. I can't watch Mad Men. I'm curious, Luke, do you have any similar experience, or do you enjoy the show?
Yeah, I think it's a funny one, because I was actually studying when the first series kind of just came out. I was doing a postgraduate in creative advertising. So I think like we were told to watch it because it was very historically accurate to what was happening in that time of the the 60s and this sort of transition of advertising. But yeah, I found it very difficult, because in one hand you're seeing how it used to be, but then in the other hand you're kind of, like you say, it's just it is real. Like, it is fairly historically accurate from what I understand. And as a result of that, you're kind of watching it going, well, this is just what happens. But yeah, it's funny, I suppose. I found it incredibly enlightening to watch something that was basically a bit of a historical dramatization of a career that I was trying to pursue at that time.
Yeah, maybe that was my issue, is that I watched it after I was done with my career. Maybe if it was during. But Vern, I'd love for you to jump in. I'm curious about watching baseball you were playing or after. Like, how'd that fit for you?
Oh, I watched it. So if I watched it enough for both of us, AJ, so you're fine there. But yeah, I think obviously I get it. I don't watch as much baseball anymore because I played it all the time. I watch guys that I may have played with, the guys who I enjoy watching play. But outside of that, there's not much baseball to be watched in my house. Plus, my wife is tired of watching it. So if it's on TV or it's being talked about, she will slap somebody. So it's just the nature of just being married to an Italian woman.
How does that play out, Vern, if like you're watching a game because a client's playing or something like that? Or is that not acceptable in the house? You got to go out to watch a client.
That's the beauty of a phone. Just pull it up on my phone, watch some highlights and things like that. But I have a question. As an artist, like, is it a struggle to are you ever focused on what's going to appeal to others, or are you just pulling from what your strengths are and what your passion is, and hope and articulate that may play with a bigger audience?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, like I've definitely, I think about that a lot. It's interesting that we just mentioned, my previous career in advertising and now this transition into something that, you know, I'm in control of my output. I think previously, one of the things I realized about being a creative in the context of advertising is that you are constantly thinking about what other people think of it, because ultimately, you know, you've got there's an objective with the communication of the advertising or the art that you're making, and maybe that's what a lot of people find frustrating about it. If in my instance, moving away from that into something that was completely just what I wanted to create, was such a great feeling. So yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for it both. I definitely do consider what people think, but I think, like, I mean, nobody has a remedy of, you know, this is what makes good art, or how to be an artist. But I think I found most joy out of making stuff when I was only really thinking about what it was that I wanted to create. And I think even with Thingdoms, it wasn't necessarily visually what I wanted to create. It was more like what I wanted to represent, like a you know, a feeling of what I wanted it to do. If I was going to have an output, that it should be a positive one.
To that point, you know, as you're talking, I'm not an artist, but I guess now with the Vayner Sports Pass and that being a consumer-facing product, I am a creator of sorts. When you were talking, Vern, awesome question, resonated with me some in that regard. I'm curious. Let's talk about Thingdoms. I think there's two paths, and you just described them. It's the care what people think, and it's not to care what people think. When you created Thingdoms, like, where was your head at, and where's your head going in regards to that? Because I think the famous line I think of is that I think listening to the community, I want to make sure everybody in the Vayner Sports Pass world hears this. I read every suggestion in the Discord suggestions channel. I read every tweet. I consume it all because I care about the perception, and I don't want to be disconnected from the sentiment. But there's this famous line. I'm gonna mess it up, but it's like, I want to say it's something to the extent of, like, if Henry Ford listened to what customers wanted back in the day, he would have just rolled out a faster horse instead of a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, you know, less as an artist, but more as a project creator and a community steward, how do you look at community sentiment and feedback, and how do you allow that to dictate your thought process?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I think, yeah, I mean, for us, I can only really talk about our successes and what has worked and what hasn't worked. And I think when we've kind of followed our vision of what we want to do and what we want to deliver, we've had the most success, because I think people can get behind that. They can really see where it's coming from. I think when you start becoming responsive to noise outside of your own, within reason, obviously everybody has opinions, and like we consume everything that the community gives to us, and I do, maybe to a fault, like you say, like maybe read too much of everything. There's definitely good ideas there, but I think it's being able to remain true to what you want to achieve, and like what it is, either from a visual point of view or from just a you know, tonally what you want to achieve, but also being open to other things. And I think, like, I've always kind of subscribed to this idea that I try and be always try and be the least smart person in the room, and you know, I always want to learn from people. So I think, like, as an artist or a creator, when they have an ego that they know best, it's good in a way, because it allows them to stay myopic on what they want to do. But I think it's also a bad thing, because if you lack that humility to realize that other people have good ideas, then you can't absorb good ideas. So I think that's something I learned from in advertising, is that, like, the actual creative or the person who has the idea isn't necessarily the most important. The creative director is the person who's most important, and they identify good ideas. So I try and approach being the artist or the creator of Thingdoms, co-founder also, by the way. I think of it as being more of a creative director thing, where I try and absorb ideas from the community, but ultimately I would just try and decide creatively. And I'm only talking creatively. Obviously, my co-founder is the software engineer, the technical side of the business, and he has his own way of thinking about that sort of stuff. But from a creative point of view, certainly it's like absorb it, but do what you got to do as well.
Makes a lot of sense. What about, so on that, think of it as almost like a balance. What percentage do you think is reliant on you steering the ship versus how much do you think you take that input and curate?
I mean, even if I give you my percentage, I'm not sure it's the right one, because I'm still trying to work this all out. I think, to be perfectly honest, it's probably 50-50 really. But I don't think it should be. I think, like I say, I should probably take my own advice sometimes and step back and be the orchestrator of the ideas. Maybe is less so the the executioner. It sounds quite
Interesting.
grim.
I have a little bit of a different perspective. And that might just be like the Vaynerchuk ego in play here. But I'm a little bit more of like a 90-10 guy where I think 90% of what Vayner Sports does, I think should be directed and led and come from us. I'm not going to say me in particular, but our team and us. While to your point, which I do agree with, keeping an open mind, right? And so what I like to think about, like all the initiatives that we have and all the plans that we have, they're mostly baked. But I think you have to be cognizant of the fact that this industry is ever evolving and moving so fast, and there's a lot of smart people in there. And so I try to keep that open mind, and I try to do that because I do believe that one, you have to be really, really smart. And this isn't just about running a project. This is just life, in my opinion. You have to always diagnose what people's intentions are and what their incentives are and what their motives are, right? I think if we listened too much in the beginning, we would have been primarily listening to people that were just trying to flip in and out of the project, right? Mint and make a profit, mint and make a profit. And so I think you have to be able to diagnose why people are saying what they're saying and understand who is coming from a big picture perspective versus a selfish perspective. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Like I said, I think it's very subjective and it's a personal choice. And I think my brother and I are very similar in that way. But that's interesting to hear your perspective. And it's good for me to hear it too, because I'm not saying I have the right perspective.
I think, yeah, sorry to interrupt you there. I think, it definitely comes from a place for me anyway of dealing with building a company and building a brand that's trying to scale as well, right? And I think you obviously want to get your hands dirty with every aspect of the business and the creative and the technology and the decision making. But for me also, it's learning where not to be involved, because obviously you want to be involved in every aspect because you care so deeply about the outcomes. But sometimes people have got to acknowledge that you might not be the best person placed to make the decision, but ultimately have the overview. It's a really good question, actually.
So I, as a novice in this space, and obviously I'm talking to two individuals who are fully knowledgeable in what goes on, how it works, but how would you explain, and I'd like to continue asking this question to every guest we have, so there's going to be different answers to this question, but why and how do you see this sustaining for the long haul? Like, I think with anything new, everybody questions it. Anybody I talk to and talk about the podcast, talk about NFTs, they are like, it's a monkey. Like, that's pretty much the first thing that comes. You're painting like a digital picture of a monkey. It's like, it's a lot more than that. Like just something quick to just answer why you think this space has what it takes to withstand the test of time.
Well, for me, I really believe in the technology. I think the underpinning technology of blockchain and of NFT specifically, I think it's, for the moment, undeniable. Like, obviously these things can come and bite you in the backside in time, but I think I believe in the technology. I think I want to be involved in exploring what the eventual final use cases are of it in the next 6 months, 6 years, 60 years. So I mean, that for me, that's where it is. And I think community as well, like the value of community is undoubted. Maybe not the best answer to that question, but my conviction in it really comes from the underpinning technology. I just can't. I just see it as being so valuable.
No, absolutely.
Well, I think exactly. I think the community side of it is something, unless you're in it, unless you're in the Discord, unless you're in the conversation, you don't necessarily know what the communities are about, and you're bringing people together in a different way, which is hugely valuable.
It's how I kind of got involved in it, and initially was actually wanting to learn about this phenomenon that's going on, and getting some skin in the game by becoming part of a member of these communities. And everybody that I've essentially built Thingdoms with, and it's been involved from a moderation to an advisory all the way up, has come from these communities. Like, obviously my co-founder Owen is my best friend from school, but other than that, we met everybody that we work with now through other communities, which is insane when you think about it, really.
Luke, something I'm curious about that I haven't had enough conversation about is how do you think different cultures interface with NFTs, right? So Vernon and I are from the States.
Mhm.
You were born in Scotland, you said, and now you live in London. How do you think that plays a role? How do you think consumers in Europe versus consumers in the States, like, do you see a difference? Do you feel a difference? I'm pretty curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there's definitely differences. I notice I'm obviously from Scotland and UK, but I notice a kind of difference even between the American consumer or community member than British. And I think like we came over to LA quite recently actually for NFT LA, and we were quite shocked by the level of understanding the general sort of population and general culture has about NFTs. Whereas in the UK, there's definitely people know what they are, but there's nowhere near the level of understanding, from younger members of culture and older as well. I think culturally, maybe American culture is more used to collecting things in the same way. Like I mean, that's a bit of a generalized statement, but I think like collecting of sports cards in general, for example, is something that's quite big in the States, whereas in the UK, we have sports cards, but it's not like a pastime like it is in the States. And if people collected stuff, they would collect maybe stickers. It's just slightly different. But I think there's maybe like the current format that NFTs are, where it's collectible art essentially. I think American culture is maybe more primed for that. Whereas in Europe, I can see they are still interested in it because as a Brit, as a Scottish person, I still collected stuff and I still collect stuff. But maybe I don't know. It's interesting because I think like maybe the European people might see more utility in things like token gating and access to things as opposed to the collectability aspect of it. I mean, it's quite a dramatic statement.
I think that makes perfect sense to me. Actually, I don't think that's too dramatic or over the top, and I think I hadn't even really thought about that foundational aspect, right? Because foundationally, when you look at the most broadly used use case of NFTs, it is more of a collectible, aspect.
Yeah.
And then I guess also like the community, anonymous representation of what a PFP is and things like that. That's obviously a huge deal too.
Yeah, I think as well, even just from like a consumer psychology level, I think there's a difference in the United States. Maybe it feels like, and people might disagree and agree with this, but in general, I think like trust is actually built through bigger brands. So like, you trust the big Coca-Colas and the big brands of the world. And I think maybe in Europe, in the UK, certainly is like, obviously we do have trust in bigger brands, but I think like it's more like independent brands that people trust. It's like a lot of people would rather go to like a organic local grocery store than a Walmart. And I think there's maybe a slight difference between that in American culture as there is in British, which has been an interesting thing for us as a creator because you're trying to build a brand.
Interesting. I like that. What about let's talk a little bit about sports. I think it's another thing. When you and I first chatted, we bonded over our advertising background, but I don't think sports are a huge aspect of the foundation of NFT culture right now, right? We're not mainstream yet. I think sports is more of a niche in the NFT culture than it is, say, in typical culture.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your background as a fan in sports.
Yeah, I'm a massive football fan, and I'll say soccer fan, but I feel bad saying it. But yeah, I'm a massive soccer fan. Growing up,
you can say football proper.
I know, but yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. We all know where you stand.
Big football fan. Grew up just as a kid in Scotland, playing football, watching football, and I just I'm just massively into football from a statistical. So I love the stats of players and knowing who played for which club and what club they're going to. But I really, really enjoy the the strategy and the tactical side of it. And then I just love like everything to do with playing football or watching football. It's a bit of a cultural phenomenon, I think. But to be honest, saying that, like I'm into soccer. Obviously, I'm into football, but I'm a bit of a Americanophile. Like I love everything to do with American culture, or not everything, but a lot of the things to do with American culture. And recently, I've gotten into a lot of like NFL. I've been watching all the All or Nothings. I've been watching all the QB1s. Been watching Last Chance U. So I've been getting really into that. Yeah, I think Americans do sports incredibly well, and there's so much of it that I really, really enjoy.
All right, who's your favorite club?
So I was going to actually wear it, but I've got like a Tom Brady Buccaneers t-shirt that I bought after watching this. I bought it just in hype watching the Super Bowl.
Podcast. No.
I watched the Super Bowl when he kind of Superman the whole thing and won, and yeah, I bought that. But I don't actually have a team. I mean, I've been kind of like thinking I might start supporting the Jets.
There we go. Now we're
So, yeah. I
What
feel
about
bad. It feels strange to pick a team. You know, I don't have any right to pick a team.
what about proper football? Your football.
My football. So I'm obviously an Arsenal supporter, but you know, my real club growing up is a team called Falkirk, which is a Scottish team. Yeah, I'm a Falkirk supporter.
How did you become Arsenal then? Obviously, you moved to London, but is there anything deeper? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a bit of a crazy one actually. Like I moved to London and ended up moving kind of coincidentally to just outside the Arsenal Stadium, actually, kind of area called Islington. And I actually didn't realize how close I lived to the stadium for a while because there's quite a lot of tall buildings. And I knew it was local, but like I couldn't see the stadium. And then one day I found it and I was like, oh wow. And I think Arsenal were playing Burnley maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and yeah, I just thought I'm going to try and go to the game. Like I've got nothing else to do. It's Saturday. I'll try and go to the game. And I found a guy. I decided he was selling a ticket, and I thought he was a tout. And I was like, oh, what do you want for the ticket? And he was like, look, I just want £40, 40 quid. And I paid him, and that was it. I just went to the game and I sat with him. He's an elderly gentleman. He's about 71, 72. And yeah, he kind of just sat with me and watched the game, and I talked to him, and you know, got a pie at halftime and enjoyed the game and stuff. And he was just telling me about Arsenal. And then I just assumed he was selling me the ticket, but he just said to me, you know, like, if you want to come next week, you know, come with me. And I was like, okay, great. And obviously I was living in London at the time. My girlfriend, my now wife, was still living in Scotland. So I kind of didn't really have much to do during the week or at the weekend. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll go. And then he just asked me to go every week. So I was obviously paying him for the ticket, but like, he just said, you can have the season ticket. The season ticket was his sons who'd moved to Liverpool pretty recently. And yeah, I've been all over the country with him watching. His name's John, if he's listening. Yeah, I've been all over the country. I've been, you know, away games, home games with him. I was down recently for the North London Derby with him. Yeah, because I'm back in Scotland for now. But yeah, I still go up and down to see him and obviously watch the football. So it's crazy. That's why I say you can't. I don't think you can pick a team. Like you gotta be picked for some reason or other, you know, through a friendship or through something like that.
That's a fun one.
Okay, I got a random one for you. Where should I eat on a Saturday night in London?
Oh, I think there's a really good place in a place called Borough Market. It depends if you like seafood, but I think it's called Wright Brothers or Wright something. It's an oyster bar. And yeah, if you Google Borough Market oysters, I love a bit of seafood.
Okay, and I got another random one for you since we're the accent. It gets me. Like I have to stop myself from trying to actually talk like I'm from Scotland and walking around London. It's the same thing. Like there's people who have American accents and I don't even hear them anymore because I don't want to hear them anymore because they're not in the right place. But are you an Outlander fan?
I've actually not seen it. No, I haven't. I've been meaning to watch it, but I've not seen it yet. But I definitely intend to watch it. I'm a bit obsessive actually when it comes to box sets. Like I like to focus on one and then see it right through and then move on to the next. So I've been saving it.
That's exactly what my wife and I did. We started it. We finished it, sadly enough, in like a few weeks. And we're out now in London. We almost wanted to make a day trip because we missed Claire and Jamie from the show just to go possibly see the filming. So we have a problem, just so you know.
Can I be enlightened? I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I'll let you.
Okay, it's a period piece. If obviously you love listening to Luke, so I mean, who doesn't? But it's about a Scottish man and an English woman, and there's some time travel involved with it. There's some sex that's involved with it.
What network? What network?
It is on Netflix, I believe.
Yeah, I think it is Netflix.
Yeah, it's Netflix. Yeah, it's a good one.
It's funny as well because it's obviously a massive show, but I don't think it's as big in the UK at the moment as it is in the States. A lot of people ask me about it, and when I first found out about it, I was like, oh wow, there's this huge American TV show, because I think it's an American TV show, right? It is actually like American produced. But yeah, I've been wanting to watch it.
All right, well, good thing for me to add to my list potentially.
Yes, add it.
What about let's take it back to Thingdoms a bit. So we've talked about you as an artist, a little bit of your background as an artist. Can you give us like the background story of how Thingdoms came to life?
Yeah. So yeah, I'd been in the NFT space as a collector and creator for a while. I was in a few notable communities. Ducks was the one I was first involved in, and kind of learned and met a lot of people. And this was last year, very early on. I was experimenting with just like releasing one-on-one art, and I was actually having quite a bit of success with it in terms of people were buying, like, not crazy success, but it was really, it felt like a development as an artist that I was actually able to create at scale and sell work. And yeah, I just saw an opportunity really to actually build something really, really hopefully quite impactful at a time where I felt like the technology is obviously so nascent, and the communities that were being built were so fresh and so organic, and everybody was really excited about it. And I just kind of saw an opportunity to use my skill set as a marketeer, as a creative, and as a visual person, and my best friend's skill set. My best friend Owen's a really talented software engineer, and I just got him in the pub one day and was like, look, I think that there's something really cool that we can build in this space. I had obviously the idea for Thingdoms as a character in my head, and I'd been building this little world and playing around with it. But I just everything all kind of came at once together. I was like, this is what we need to do. Yeah, it was really just, I think, being in the right place at the right time and having a really well-rounded skill set and the connection to someone else who had a really suitably well-rounded skill set at the same time as well.
That's awesome. What about pivoting? Obviously we did something together, sports things. For depending on when this goes live, we're still working through some tiny technical issues to get the metadata right. But skipping that, can you talk a little bit about the experience in creating sports things? I'm obviously going to share my insight too, but I'd love for you to kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool actually building a collaborative collection with another project. It's not something we've done before, which opens up sort of really interesting challenges to how do you create something that reflects both communities or both brands' visual appeal, but also the tonality of their communities. I think hopefully we've achieved that quite well. It's been really cool. I think, like with anything, like you mentioned, there's technical learnings that can be made, but I mean, we've spoken about this in private and maybe in public on Twitter, but I think it was quite cool for us to make something that really didn't have any sort of crazy expectations about what it would do. And it was more about, I mean, in context of the space, obviously the market suffered quite a lot in the last couple of months, and a lot of people have been stung by that. But I think like what we kind of tried to do was create something that was just fun for people. And, like everybody loves opening packs and everybody loves, Thingdoms characters, hopefully. Yeah, that was really the intention. It's been a really, really cool journey. And I've enjoyed working with, as I say, your community and our community, because they've kind of shaped it as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, to your point, the cool thing about this partnership is that it's a free mint, right? Yeah. I've seen people saying they were able to mint their sports things. We gave one to everybody that has a Thingdom and a Vayner Sports Pass, and one for each that you have. So I think I actually minted 12 because I only own one Vayner Sports Pass, and that's just because I want it to be, church and state and all that. And then I actually own 11 Thingdoms.
Yeah.
So I minted my 12, and it cost me like, I don't know, $15 or whatever. So the cool thing is, I think to your point, it's art forward. It was really fun. Luke, you obviously led the way on the creative, but you made me a part of the collaborative process. And I just think the way we were able to mash up, Vayner Sports Pass and Thingdoms and create sports things and free for holders. I think the art came out awesome. I know I'm biased, but I feel pretty good even from, the short period of reveal and the teasers that the community really vibed with the Thingdoms, becoming full bodied, right? So the Thingdom is the face and maybe
legs,
right? But yeah, now you got legs, and just seeing the Thingdoms and getting a perspective of how big they are and what they're doing with each of the sports. And I think fun is at the center of it. And then for the holders too, obviously I've got some fun ideas for what we can do for Vayner Sports Pass holders too. But I've always said that the art was the primary benefit. So just really appreciative that we got to do this together. It was authentic. It was organic. I'm a bit, I'm not, we can check the blockchain. I'm like 99% sure I've never sold a Thingdom. I'm pretty sure I've held the whole way, and have scooped up a few along the way. And it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you were at Thingdoms very early, like very, very early. Like I actually was trying to look back because someone mentioned it the other day, and it was before Christmas, I think.
Yeah,
so a while back.
For sure. Let's see.
Everything y'all described, it's amazing how eerily it sounds to Chris Brown's project. Like it's so close, but just not even anywhere in the same ballpark. Sorry.
Yeah, what?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw the news, and I had to bring it up.
Yeah, not to hate on Chris, but I think in general, it's something that I'll talk to for a second. It's something that we talk about internally a lot, is this idea of like a celebrity backed project, right? Because we've got athletes and we've got some celebrities in our ecosystem, and it's just it's been really interesting to watch the path over the last year and change of celebrities trying to get in, and the different levels of success and failure and things of that nature. It's an interesting aspect of the industry, that's for sure.
Do you think it's actually more beneficial to just be non-docs, just handle your business under the radar, doing it the right way, and then come to find out this is who did it? Or is it just better to just have a full-fledged plan in place before you start going down the path?
I think the thing that has hurt most celebrity-backed projects is that the celebrity involved is not actually authentically integrated, passionate, operational. It's drop, it's collect money, and it's call it a day. I got to be careful because I love my brother with all my heart, but I need to keep that head in check. He is a celebrity of sort. And I think what ultimately made VeeFriends sing while so many others failed is that Gary took the time. Luke, you talked about it. My brother is a real collector. I think that's something that all three of us here, and then my brother could share, like sports cards, toys, whatever. Like both he and I are drawn to NFTs primarily from that like collecting DNA, and then obviously the ability of the technology and things of that nature. And so I just think that Gary was authentic. He took his time learning the industry. He was early. He's somebody that's always been of technology, so to speak, right? Like an active investor in the tech space for so long, an early adopter of things like Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and Snapchat, et cetera. And then not only that, but after the mint, like he's an operator, he's a businessman, he spends real time on it. There's dozens of employees, there's reinvestment, there's innovation. And I just think most celebrities aren't willing to put in the effort to make a project win. I think that's the bigger downfall. Now, what I will say, Vern, to your point that I think is fascinating is let's take a look at Goblin Town. So Goblin Town was initially started as a free mint where the founders were not doxxed. And then they eventually doxed themselves, maybe like 2 months in, 6, 7, 8 weeks in. And what was pretty awesome for me is like one of the main co-founders of Goblin Town, somebody that I really knew. I'm in a DAO with him. He's a friend, used to live in New York. Our fund invested in his startup. And I didn't know that he was a Goblin Town co-founder. And so what I will say is if a A-list celebrity got involved with a real project and did not attach their name to it originally, but then 2, 3, 4, 6 months down the line, the founders were doxxed and it was an A-list celebrity as one of the real founders, I think that project would explode post-doxing. I think that would be huge. So I think
that's Luke, so what's ahead for Thingdoms? Where do you see it going over the next few months, few years?
I mean, hope forward is the simple answer. I think like if it was to lay down our strategy at the moment, we're obviously building a brand. We're trying to build like a culture brand. But I think in reality, it's building a business around the project and trying to operate professionally and just do things the right way. So we've just got a new office. Like Owen and I are actually co-founders in the same city, so we've got the luxury of actually being able to start a little hub around us and employ people. We have a software engineer that in Costa Rica, and we have another community leader we're employing in America. So yeah, we're going to try and build the business, build the team around us that allows us to work and build what we are building, but also explore other aspects of blockchain, as a company as well. But we've got some really cool stuff coming. I think all of our focus at the moment really is about becoming an actual extensible or portable asset. I think our focus is making our token do things in the future and be able to plug into different worlds and different places and different things. So we've got some really cool ideas about how we can create new iterations of Thingdoms, pixel things and 3D things. And yeah, it's just rolling them out slowly, and obviously trying to wrap that in like a really fun narrative for the community.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that. I think what's really going to separate the PFP projects over the next 3 years is how they look at interoperability, how they look at bringing utility beyond being a PFP in itself, right? I think that this downturn that we're in was kind of a small bubble popping of the, Vernon, like the outside world would say, it's just a picture of a monkey. Now, I think everybody that's in the industry knows that Bored Ape is a lot more than that. And, if you look at the moves that the Yacht Club has made in terms of infrastructure, the venture capital that they've raised, the people that they've hired, the people they've aligned with, they clearly have bigger and better aspirations. But it's going to come down to execution, right? Because if they execute, they'll become a global brand. And if they don't execute, they'll become what the naysayers said. They were just a picture with a monkey on it. Now, I'm betting on them to execute. Full disclosure, our fund wrote a small check in their large venture round, but I believe in them. But failure is a possibility for anybody in this space. It's early, and there's hoops and hurdles. And one thing I will say, I don't want it to sound like an excuse, but I'm going to put it on tape. We're experiencing it now together. Official statement: Web3 is hard. It's hard. Yeah. It's early technology. It's clunky. I had the good fortune, even though I'm only 35, I had a little bit of a front row seat to the e-commerce Web 1 days where I was young, but my brother Gary was really pushing the envelope forward. I don't think people realize how shitty websites were and how often servers and websites crashed in 1996. Like, I remember being at the dinner table and the website wasn't working. Now that concept of a website not working is like, okay, quick fix, 2 seconds. Could have been a month issue back in the day. And then I also got a really good look at Web 2. And that time I got to be in the driver's seat, so to speak, with VaynerMedia. And I watched it, and I was in college and then as an early founder. But like, I think people forget that Twitter used to go down all the time. Twitter was down all the time. There was something when they were down and they had server issues or capacity issues, there was a picture of a whale and it had a 404, basically server error. And it was affectionately called the fail whale. And the fail whale was constant when Twitter was growing. People can't, if Twitter went down right now, it would be a fluke and people would freak the fuck out. But it used to be a daily occurrence. OpenSea, multi-billion-dollar Web3 corporation, constantly being referred to as Broken Sea when they're down, right? So again, not making excuses. Vayner Sports Pass has its issues and we're responsible for them. But, I think it's worth highlighting that, like I said, official statement, Web3 is hard.
I agree.
So I have a random story since we have a soccer fan on. So when I was with the Blue Jays, our clubhouses were typically, we had a bunch of clowns in our clubhouses. I mean, that's probably pretty much any sports clubhouse or locker room. You have a bunch of kids who haven't grown up or don't plan on growing up at any point. So we would have Nerf guns in our clubhouse. So when David Beckham played in LA, they were out in Toronto to play them, and they came down to a game. Came down early, came in the clubhouse, and when David walked in the room, we were all kind of hiding in our lockers, and we lit him up with Nerf guns. that just shows we just didn't care. Like, it was anybody who walked in the locker room. Yeah, they were getting lit up.
How did he react?
He loved it. He was dying. I'm sure. He doesn't get that response very often.
No, I can imagine he's not used to getting nerfed. Although I think there's a story. It's funny actually, because there's a story that Sir Alex Ferguson kicked a football boot. Is the Manchester United manager, and he kicked a football boot and it famously hit David Beckham in the face. And there was this whole thing like in British media where it was like, oh, is he going to come out with a scar on his face? And he was photographed in the newspaper. It was all over the paper. I think it was around about the time of World Cup as well. So maybe he's used to getting hit by things in the locker room after all.
Yeah, and for him, it probably made him even better looking, which I hate people like that anyway, so whatever.
Luke, curious, a good opportunity for me to expand my perspective of world culture. Does American baseball mean anything in Scotland?
I mean, I like it. Yeah, it's. I think we consider it. American football or football is seen probably as, the big sport. It's like it's the kind of, but I think it's like a very global thing where people think of it as being like the franchise. It's like the big, like the commercial
like the Dallas Cowboys and American football.
I think it's like more of a representation of America in general than American sport, I think, if you were to break it down. Whereas I think people think of baseball as like what the real American sport is. That's how I think of it anyway. And definitely from a British point of view, there's definitely an interest in it because cricket's really big here. And it's a form of a bat sport, isn't it? So we have, I think a British person understands baseball on a fundamental level better than we understand basketball and football.
Interesting. Vernon, you ever play cricket?
You know what's funny is I actually spent 3.5 months in Australia. They had a winter league baseball team there randomly in Sydney. So I played with a lot of Australian guys, and I would pick it up every now and then. They'd bowl to me, and I'd do my best to hit it. But the strange thing about the guys is we'd be taking batting practice with baseballs, and they're catching balls with no gloves on. And I'm like, what is wrong? What is wrong with you guys? Like,
it's a hard ball as well. It's a hard ball.
Yeah, they're hard too, but I mean, people are crazy. Like, I couldn't do it. In baseball, you have a glove for a reason, so you use it. And they're just like, nope, don't care. Catching line drives, diving after them, catching them. I'm like, there's something wrong with you people.
I suppose it's the same as rugby as well, right? It's like no pads.
Yeah, that's just brave. I couldn't do it. I like my face too much, even though it's not the best face. And my nose would just get bigger, and it wouldn't play on camera. So it's not a good combination for me, honestly.
Yeah. We do like baseball, though. I definitely have a lot. I was in Japan, actually.
Yeah, I was just curious because, Vernon, the legend that he is, I was just curious if his sport of choice and his career held any relevance in Scotland. That was my curiosity. That's what was driving.
Definitely, yeah. I think, if you came to Scotland and said, "Oh, I'm a former baseball player," that's cool. That was very cool.
All right.
Well, we got one fan, one Scottish fan. So
There we go.
It was Luke knows what baseball is, but everybody else maybe not. That's fine. We found the one.
Yes. Awesome. Well, Luke, man, I really appreciate you taking the time with us. Like I said, I'll reemphasize, getting to know you as a friend has been awesome. I'm a big believer in the artwork that you make. I'm a proud collector, and I think that once these sport things reveal, I'm pretty hyped. I think we got a nice taste of what the community sentiment was for it. And I think it's got a real shot to be a meaningful project. And what kind of gives me inspiration, I'll end on this, is that, we've seen some like mashup NFTs before where like, I can remember a good one with like toads and creature world. And then you had creature toads, like these mashup of different PFPs and collections. And typically, I think they were like CCO and unofficial. I don't think we've ever really seen two projects come together and create a third project, create a child project that was successful. And so I'd be lying if that wasn't some of my inspiration, was to kind of like set a new standard and take something that was a free mint, that was truly a mashup, and make it successful. So I'm excited for that challenge. And by the way, if somebody's listening and has seen one that could prove me wrong, please point it my way. But I haven't seen it. So I'm excited about our partnership, and I'm excited about the artwork itself and just the opportunity. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. It's been cool. It's been really nice to meet you, Vernon.
Same here.
Yeah, thanks for having me involved.
Awesome, man. Have a good rest of the day. Appreciate you. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Going Deep. To learn more about Vayner Sports Pass, please follow us on Twitter @VSPass. Also, don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.